Kelsey is what we call the exception, not the rule. Her entire life is a reflection of what it means to be there for others. In everything she does, Kelsey finds ways to support other people. Listening to her speak will reinforce two things. Real friendship is an action that requires constantly showing up. Last but not least, people who practice active immersion will be the ones to break down barriers by building bridges with others.
Welcome to another episode of the Somebody's Son podcast, where biting your tongue is never allowed. Young men battle with the pressures of manhood every day. Each episode, we tackle topics that focus on worth, actions, and relationships. Our goal is simple: help men win the war with themselves.
I feel like I keep hearing a lot about you from Chris and T, just about like how much like you just continue to like just be there and willing to do any and all things needed in order to open up this phenomenal creative studio. Mm-hmm. So first and foremost, continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you in person. Plus my OG's wife, Dawn, knows you. So that's
Which is a crazy coincidence.
That's a small world, bro. And it was weird because like I just reposted your invite. Like, so she didn't have like picture, any of those things. She was like, yo, I know her. I was like, I don't think you know her. She was like, listen to me, young man. Like, you know how,
I know her.
Yeah. But like I call you, your nickname, although this is our first time ever meeting, I call you Overachiever because I feel like you're always finding ways, at least from the stories I hear, to positively contribute to not only their opening, but also positively contribute to their vision manifesting. So like, first of all, like, why are you that way? Like, why are you so supportive?
I think it's definitely from my parents and growing up. Without getting into it too much, my dad didn't really have that same like familial support when he was a track athlete and played a lot of other sports as well. But I think when my brother and I were growing up, that was the one thing that like they had that discussion as parents. They were like, we're not missing any piano recitals. We're not missing any basketball or baseball games. Like we're going to everything. Okay. And there were certain times when there was a conflict, right? And I'm like, oh, you don't have to worry about coming, you know? And they're like, no, we're gonna be there. And it was like a big deal for them that they were always there. And in that capacity, they weren't even doing anything. They were just sitting there watching me or listening to me or whatever. So I think it started there. And then I started to see at those basketball games, at those piano recitals, that other people's parents weren't there. And I was like, man, that's crazy. Like, why aren't they here? You know, like their kids doing something. And half the time they were the best one on the court or...
That's the story of my life, man.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I always was like, I need to be there for those people because they don't have that support system that I have. So I think it just manifested into something, that just became really important to me. And it's, like I was saying earlier, I was listening to y'all's like Impact versus Legacy, episode 1.
Okay.
And
From the jump.
First
of all, respect.
Respect. And I was thinking the whole time, like, what is my impact or what is my legacy? And to some extent, I think it's kind of the same thing in this conversation, but I always want people, when I leave them, to feel like she was really there for me, or like she, like I might not have done anything other than to just be there, or to offer an idea or to give advice, or, like somebody has a show down in Newport News or in DC or whatever, like I'm gonna make sure that I make time to be there. Even if we don't even speak afterwards, I just wanna make sure that I'm there to support you. So. That's like
phenomenal. Yeah. You're raising the bar of what it means to be a good friend. Mm-hmm. And I
don't mean to do that.
No, you should though. I wish you would. That like I'm glad that that's who you are, and your parents have cultivated that kind of mentality in you and your brother. At the same time, though, like that's what you're doing, and I'm glad you are. Like I think so many times people claim friendship when it's convenient,
right?
And you're willing. Like, again, this is our first time meeting.
Right.
Just from what I hear,
I'm
just like, bro, like, what? Like, she's doing what?
And it's crazy that Dawn even remembered my name or recognized my name. And that's literally only because I'm constantly there to support the people that she also supports.
Yeah.
And we haven't had that many like one-on-one conversations. It's just been very casual, like, oh, hey, you know, like, what's up? But like, we're in the same place again. And so it's crazy that, you know, again, that impact has like reached her, even though it's not necessarily for her, it's like secondhand impact.
Wow. That's because one of the things we talked about with T is people are always watching.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the beauty for who you are is that the people that watch you, they actually can notice how you're finding ways to positively contribute and champion them.
Right.
Like,
that's crazy that you're saying all this and like we literally don't know each other.
no, but I feel like I know. My mom used to tell me that you know who people are by their actions.
Right.
So people can give you lip service.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. People can tell you they're your friend and they support you. But like,
Confirm from multiple
Show-
sources is crazy.
yeah.
Right.
And confirm with multiple sources is crazy. But your actions have preceded you.
Right. Well, love is an action, right?
Oh.
So that's something else that like I just like really care about. I care about people. Like I, you know, regardless of where you've come from, how you got here, you know, like love is an action. And I recognize that not everybody has that mindset or hasn't experienced the like physical sense of love. And, you know, like that's super important for me to like always spread every day. Like I just want to love on people and I want to make sure that they feel that. And so like your mom was saying, like based on my actions, like everything I do is just like through love.
Do you ever feel overgiving, like as a person?
Sometimes, but I have a lot of, now that I've become an adult, I've come up with a lot of different ways to wind down and doing things for myself and for my mental health. And so, but in college, 100%, I was drained the whole time because I was like the mascot and I was doing tours and I was president of the club that went to all the sporting events. And I was in a sorority and had a chair position in that. And so, but all of it was with the intention of making people feel loved and supported and all of that. And I would just go home and sleep. And that was like my way of dealing with it. But now that I have the opportunity to kind of pick and choose, like you said, sometimes friendships are just out of convenience. Now the friends that I have are the friends that I truly want to like in my life, like my chosen family. And so now that we're all adults and kind of have our own families and stuff, it's not as necessary to be giving all of the time. It's a little bit easier, especially in coronavirus times when you can just call people and check in on them.
Yeah.
But yes, I definitely did struggle with that. Like, am I doing too much? But at the end of the day, I was like, no. Like, there's always more to do.
I like that concept you brought of chosen family. I think that's important. I think they're...
Yeah, you're like literal family almost for me, but you know, like I'm still choosing, like you're still chosen for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could literally just be, you know, my cousin's partner, but you're way more than that. Like, you have more job titles at House of Market than he does, and we're actually blood.
Right.
So I think the same thing is for like Donald and Ali. Like these are my brothers here. We talk almost 7 days a week mostly. Ali, we talk on a regular basis, and we share intimate
Multiple
stories.
times a week.
Yeah, we share intimate stories. We get inspired by one another. We motivate one another. We challenge one another when it's healthy, and I think that's important because I think there's levels of friendship, right?
Yeah.
And I think chosen family is kind of like that.
Chosen family is like top tier. Like that's, you want to be there.
Even past like blood family.
Yeah.
Times.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Even like direct blood family. You know what I mean?
I say this all the time. There's a difference between family and relatives.
Yeah,
Yes.
You mention that to me often.
I tell you this all the time.
Yeah.
Relatives aren't chosen. right? You're born into it. And there's nothing really you could do about it because they're just inherited.
Yeah.
Family. And so I read up on you because we've never met. I'm just, look.
I don't even know what there is to read.
Bro, there's so many, it's mad articles out there.
There's mad articles about it.
Do not Google me.
So, homecoming queen. One.
Yeah.
But for the record, you notice how modest
in
humble
college.
she is. She didn't even say that. She mentioned all these other things, and then in college, Christopher Newport.
Yeah. Shout out to you.
Yeah, side note, you had a bar outside. We were talking about seeing you.
Oh, yeah.
And she was talking about the reason why she supports people is because what she sees in you is a whole nother.
Yeah, it was
It's a whole nother thing. You got bars too.
If anything, I'm gonna be cheesy.
Yeah. But I feel like everything I read about you, Kelsey, is like you bleed community. And community is a combined word. So commune, to come together with other people in one space, whether you have likeness with them or not, to commune with somebody. One of my favorite coffee shops or my favorite coffee shop in Houston is Agora, and Agora in Greek means commune. And when I go there, I love it because there's so many different walks of life. Rice University students, University of Houston students, my friend who introduced me, she's a realtor, like business people, and they're all coming there to the same coffee shop and tea shop, and everybody's working on everything they're working on. But like from a creativity perspective, everyone's communing together, and like you're talking to one another, oh, what's that beer? Or how'd you like that coffee or whatever? By the way, I think that's the beauty behind Household Market, because this is where creatives live, and there's gonna be so many people doing it. Y'all are creating a place for people to commune. But I think the other part is the unity part, right? It is easy, you could disagree with somebody and still be in unity with them.
Right.
Like I love my wife dearly. I would give my life for my wife dearly. And at the same time, we see life differently, and that's okay. There's many things we see similarly.
It's healthier for you to be that way in relationship.
Oh
with
yeah,
people.
like she improves and smooths out my rough edges. But I say that to say this: you bleed community. You seek out, just from what I read about you, you seek out ways to commune with people that are like you and not like you. And at the same time, it doesn't prevent you from supporting them, which then creates unity.
Right.
And we need more people like that. And if I take it a step further, just being completely blunt, we need more people that look like you to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like we're transitioning into the topic now, but
he has a very smooth way of doing it.
I like it. But yeah, I was thinking about that, and I am oftentimes the minority in the group as far as like when I'm around my friends, who are my friends, right? And you know, a lot of the times now where it just doesn't, you know, no one really pays attention to it, but I'm oftentimes one, the only woman there, and two, the only white person present.
I don't practice toxic masculinity by any stretch of the imagination, but I want to borrow something from my man Nori, Drink Champs. Whenever somebody says something that's phenomenal, they clap. And what you just said is phenomenal. So we're going to clap for that. We're going to clap for that. You're the minority in groups that you're in socially, that you are choosing.
Often, very often.
In a country that's 70% Caucasian, you're the minority in your groups.
And,
I'm sorry, continue.
And in the capital of the Confederacy, I am very oftentimes, I don't know if y'all have seen Last Chance U, the basketball season.
Yeah,
of course.
Okay, remember when the coach was looking around, he's like, "We are a bunch of African American men and Mark," and and so like ever since that, Horace has been like, "You're Mark." Like, you're Mark. And like he'll call me Mark in certain situations now. He's like, "What up, Mark?" But and I like welcome that. I want to be in community with people that aren't like me, because what's the point of hanging around people that think just like you? That's not taking you anywhere. You're staying in your comfort zone, and you only grow outside of that comfort zone. Yeah. And I learned that from a very young age, and I can't tell you how I learned that, how I became friends with the people I became friends with. And back in the day, it was one of those things that like, as a kid, you don't fully understand, but it was one of those things where like in my head, I was like, I don't know, I just like don't see the color of people. Like I just see people and energies and who I want to hang out with and who I don't want to hang out with. And the people that had the good energy and the loving vibe to them just happened to not be people that looked like me. And through that, I was able to like go to other people's houses, like see how they lived, see what kind of snacks they had. Like that's a fun thing, like going over, like what kind of snacks do you have, And like some people only have vegetables, and I was like, that's cool, but like where's the fruit snacks? And like so I started to learn culture through that as like a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old just by going over to other people's houses because that's who I met in my class, That's amazing. And after that, and my parents didn't ever have any, like reservations. Some parents are like, no, you can't go to so-and-so's house. They didn't care. But they were friends with my friends' parents and, had good relationships with them too. Yeah. And I think that's important because there are a lot of young children that want to hang out with certain people and their parents won't let them, and I won't be that parent. If there's like a real reason why you can't hang out with them, or like you can hang out with them but they have to come over to our house, like that kind of thing, fine, but they never put any restrictions on who I could be friends with. And oftentimes they comment, like almost every time I see my parents, they're always like, man, you just have like a great set of friends. Like all of your friends are just like very genuine people. And I have like less than 5 white friends.
Wow. I got more white friends than you.
But see, it's the same concept almost. Right? Where you want to learn, you already know what your culture is to an extent, right? No one can ever fully understand.
Sure.
But you understood what that was, and you saw other people that didn't look like you, that you just wanted to learn about them. And then you became friends with them because of like a difference of mindset or whatever, that clash is healthy.
Yeah. Right, and I'll say this. I mean, I remember being in middle and high school, and there was 2 sides of the lunchroom, and it was like one side was it was just me and my friends, and the opposite side was opposite color. You know what I mean? So I won't even sit here and act like I've been like a positive contributor to like this mashing of culture and everything like that, everything like that. But I'll say this: the thing that happened for me to flip that around was when I went to Atlanta with Donald. And believe it or not, this is what happened. I literally made my friends are more diverse after I went to Atlanta, because I don't remember of course you're gonna remember this, but we went around Atlanta and he was introducing me to like, his friends, business people, like even like friends of Dalen, who's his son, and they were all different kinds of people. And I understood, right? Rocco, met Rocco. Ken, did Ken. We did, it was a bunch of different people.
Lauren.
Laura, yeah.
Yeah, Lauren, Laura,
all those different people, man. And not just that I realized that everybody, regardless of your ethnicity or your skin tone, can, you can positive benefitly from having them in your circle, but their perspective is different from yours, and it'll fill the little gaps that you may need, right?
Right.
Bro, so she said something. She said earlier, I learned culture. First of all, in America, for a white person to say I learned culture is both refreshing, and also the exception.
Right. Which it shouldn't be at all. And not only have I learned about it, but I've experienced it. Yeah. Like I've been in like
you've had
moments.
proximity.
Right, exactly.
And that's what you're speaking on.
Right.
And I'm very intentional in that because even me and G flew in yesterday, right? I've shown him in one day so many different sides of Richmond.
Right.
He can talk to anybody from Richmond and he can navigate that conversation.
Right.
Right? But the reason I do that is because my parents were military. And so I've had black friends tell me white people are evil. And I'm like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
Are there some evil white people?
Yes.
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 Yes. And if y'all watch this podcast, feel completely uncomfortable around me. At the same time, more often than not, white people are dope.
Yeah,
and
man.
white people who meet black people, although they might not have spent as much time with them growing up, they realize black people are dope and Asian people are dope and Indian people are dope. So I love the fact that you said you had to learn culture. Culture in the past, historically, has been written. The history books has taught us that culture is written by victors through war. And that culture is set by dominant majority populations. So like in this country, the majority of the population is Caucasian. And so that's why culture has somewhat been written in history books from a white perspective. I live in Atlanta now.
Everything's been whitewashed.
Yeah. But what I love that you've learned, and I'm glad that you realized this, and I only do this because my parents did it for me, is culture is not just your ethnicity and your way of life. Culture means way of life, but it's not just yours.
Right.
And we have to find ways to tear down these barriers, these silos, this division. That's why I'm so hype about House on Market, is because, I love the fact that T and Chris celebrate black people. Like, I think that's amazing, especially because T is the one from Atlanta, and I feel like she calls it Black Hollywood, I call it Wakanda. But like, I love that. But at the same time, I think House on Market is going to be that much more impactful because of the Kelseys and the Alyssas, right? Like, I want people to come here and be like, oh, snap. Like, black people are dope, and they're not, you could wear a hoodie and not want to shoot a cop. And, oh, by the way, in this country, more white guys actually go shooting and killing massive people. And I want them to learn culture.
Right.
And we've created a community where it's okay to be white and not know the full fabric of your community. And that's a problem.
Here's the thing, and it's something I want to touch on. It's something that, Kelsey, I think you exercise very greatly compared to probably other white people, I'll just say it, is the power of choice, right? Your circumstances, some people can easily rely on their circumstances as an excuse to why they don't close the gap between them and other cultures, right? Prime example, if you grow up in certain parts of Richmond and you go to the local private school and you go to University of Richmond and your parents take you to Greece for summer breaks, you may not ever...
We went from silo to silo, yeah.
You may not ever experience a person of a different culture other than they work at the Starbucks around the corner or at the cafeteria at my school or they're the janitor, right? So your only experience with the person that look like you is in
your point of reference.
Yeah, your only point of reference is very, very limited. But you make a choice to, I don't want to say get outside of your comfort zone, but you make a choice to experience other people where they are in their homes. And I think that that's something, I don't know the solution to that, but I think that's going to be one of the biggest ways we can change our outlook on other. It's not just white to black, but black to white also, right? We have to make a choice. And I know for me, like, you're my only white friend. I love G to death. I'll give G a hug every time I see him. But outside of that, like outside of work, everybody I mostly interact with are people who look like me. And I don't know the reasons why, but I haven't made it a priority to go out of my way to connect with others. And I don't know the reason why, but one reason why is our people need a lot of help, right? Like we need to help our people. And I can see how access and information and legacy and all these things can has, and redlining and, financial institutions, discriminating against people. I can see how all these things created a gap. So while I want to be more inclusive and want not inclusive now, but while I want to make it more of an effort to have people that are close friends of mine or other people, I want to help my people first. Right. And that's why I appreciate you so much for exercising your power of choice.
My people don't need help. And that's the thing is like, like white people don't need help. They've been conquering lands that aren't theirs.
You have to choose. You got to make a choice.
And I have, ever since I've realized that I'm like different in the fact that my friend group is all like opposite of me in every single way. Like we have a Squadsgiving event every November, except for this past November. We're gonna have a really good one this year.
Did
but
you say Squadsgiving?
Friendsgiving.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
but like
It's a cool way to say
my Squadsgiving group is 9 of my Black male friends, their girlfriends, wives, and then like a couple of other people that want to come. It's like me and my best friend Katie. We are the only white people there. And last year,
Shout outs to Katie.
Yeah,
I don't
shout
even
out
know
to
you,
Katie.
but shout out to Katie.
shout out to Katie.
She's making us a blanket.
She is making you a blanket.
I
It
can't
should be
wait.
done soon.
Thank you.
But like out of like 30 people, it's like just me and Katie who are like the only white people there, and we're definitely not the only female representation, but no one ever brings it up. There's like, if there's a new person that comes, they kind of look around and they look at somebody else and they're like, are they? And they're like, man, shut up. Like, why are you pointing it out? Like, it doesn't need to be pointed out. Like, they're obviously here. They're with us. They put a lot of this together, you know? But that's the thing is like, I've made that choice because I know that like I come with automatic privilege. Right?
Oh, so you are hitting home runs.
So go ahead, finish. This is good.
So I didn't necessarily learn all those terms of like white privilege and a lot of that, but I knew that I had it from like a very young age. And, you know, it was one of those things where like, if someone was being mistreated, I would look around and be like, why isn't anybody saying anything? And then I would go up and address it or stop it, and then it would just stop. But it, you know, sometimes it was like I was the third person that got there, and then all of a sudden, you know, everything's fine. And I'm like, what? And
Because the 2 people that came before you were minorities.
we're minorities. And I'm like, y'all are crazy. Like that shit, you know? So it's definitely one of those things where like I will exercise it when it's important. But I definitely don't ever want to take advantage of it. And if I'm taking advantage of it, if you're tired of hearing from me, it's probably because I'm calling you out for being racist so much. And if you don't like that, that's okay. If the people that don't like me are the racist people, I've won.
Again, shout out to DJ EF in North. Can we clap this up? This is crazy.
It's like, it shouldn't be that phenomenal though. It shouldn't be.
But it is though.
Right.
And 2 things I would say is, you said your friend group is not as diverse. It's G, it's Kelsey. But it's hard to be socially curious when you're socially in pain.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Black people of color are in pain in this country.
Right.
And so it's hard for us to then go seek out. So you're not wrong for not seeking it out, but I understand why. At the same time, I want to commend you because you are setting, I'm very big on, they know this, I'm very big on proximity. Proximity is not necessarily distance, it's socially. Like, what are we doing socially? Because socially, I have found as a military brat that my parents can move me to Columbus, Georgia, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Naples, Italy, Germany twice, in the middle of Fort Riley, Kansas. And as long as I had a ball and some food, I made friends regardless of your color.
Right.
So I've had friends come over that I can't speak to, but they love me because we played ball.
Right. Because
Right?
you had something that connected you.
Right? But they were socially curious through sport. Or through food, they were socially curious. They could speak my language, but they didn't really know black people like that because we live in the middle of Wiesbaden, Germany. And so they're like, oh, like, let's go have food at Donald's house. Parents come over, and because of the food, now they're socially curious. You're amplifying that or accelerating it to another point, because what you're saying is you recognize advantages, what Malcolm Gladwell would say is hidden advantages of your own whiteness or ethnicity, and now you're using that to then advocate for the very people that are socially in pain.
I challenge that. Our only reason I challenge that is not a hidden advantage. I think
It is for many if they're blind.
True, but honestly, at this day and age, if you are blind to the power, the privilege that you have, because you have the power for you to know you have the power to exercise that privilege however you want to, that's powerful within itself. Like that's a level of self-identity that I can't personally be able to identify with, right? But that for anyone in this day and age to not recognize that there is privilege and there is power in that privilege, you are willfully.
I disagree with you.
You're willfully being ignorant. And
I don't want to advocate for blind white people. Like that's not what I'm doing, especially as the darkest one on the set today. But like, I don't believe in privilege, personally.
Okay.
I believe in luxury.
Okay.
Privilege you have to be aware of. If you're aware of it, it's a privilege.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I totally agree with privilege. If I'm unaware of it, it's a luxury. There are people that have the luxury of clean water in this country, and they don't know it's a luxury until they go to certain parts of Africa. Is it a privilege? Yes, but if I'm unaware of it, or Flint, Michigan. But if I'm unaware of it, it's a luxury. It's something that I'm being afforded that I'm unconscious about as a luxury. It's very similar.
Yeah, but there's a level I want to delve deeper into.
Okay.
When you look at prime example, we know that the killing of African-American men in this country by police officers is a huge problem that we have.
Right.
And if you take the social media or you look at the responses that people have that aren't people of color, the majority of the times they lead with, well, that person probably did something wrong to deserve that.
I'm not talking about willfully blind people.
But that's more of the problem. It's not so much the people who can exercise the luxury of being white or their privilege that comes along with it. It's the people who, if you can't empathize, if you can't see that just a person or people are getting disproportionately killed by the police officers that are the minority in this company, and you can't see that as an issue. If you can't put yourself or your son or your daughter in those shoes, that's a problem.
I agree with you. I just don't think that's the majority of white people.
I'm not saying it's the majority of white people.
Okay.
Well,
which is why I call it a luxury.
But it's not the majority of white people. I agree with you.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's enough. It's enough to
Agreed.
not steer the boat.
Because the people that have the luxury are the loudest ones. Because they don't know what it's like to not have the luxury.
But this is my point. You make a choice to experience other people and learn their culture, and then you end up being the minority in your group because your experience has led you towards being with us. I rock with it, right? But do you necessarily need experience to put yourself in someone's shoes when it comes to things like police brutality?
You have to be a nice person.
A decent human being.
You just have to be an empathetic person.
You have to have some level of empathy.
Empathy is, for me, I think empathy requires no experience, no luxury, no privilege, no color. Empathy is just basic. It should be a basic human trait. And a lot of people don't have that.
You do have to have a level of experience to be empathetic, though, I think.
Thank you.
Because place yourself in someone else's shoes. Chris, I know if I'm going
some people never have to do that, bro.
But if I'm going...
And that's what I'm saying. You're going where I'm about to say. Yeah. I have a best friend who, I won't get into the health concern, but we were prepared to do a business together. And because of this health scare, his priority was forget the business. I'm worried about my health. Mm-hmm. In that moment, because I had not cultivated empathy, my thing was, I hope you good. I'm here for you. When are we gonna get back on this business? Mm.
Right.
To him, his thing was, yo, you don't care about me, you don't love me. That's not the case. I had not cultivated empathy, and to your point around being in silos.
You didn't prioritize it. You had it, but you didn't prioritize it.
No, hold on. It also wasn't cultivated in my household. My household was very strict and very militarily ran. So my parents would tell you empathy on the continuum of emotion, empathy was probably the least thing that was cultivated. Mm. Drive was cultivated.
Mm-hmm. Same.
resiliency was cultivated. Learning how to navigate white America was cultivated. What is empathy?
On the low, it's low on the totem pole.
It's so low on the
Here's what I
totem
think
pole.
about empathy. I want to make this point about empathy, but yes, all that can be true. However, if you are a victim of a situation, the first thing you would want from someone else is what?
If I'm the victim,
if something happens to you, you would hope that someone is empathetic toward the situation, regardless of right, wrong, indifferent, color, experience, upbringing. Empathy is the first thing you're gonna look for.
But it's not something that you're born with.
Exactly. That's all I'm saying.
So,
I agree with you. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't know kids. I've heard a lot of situations about. You often hear about super successful people talk about their kids and how they're just like they live in unawareness, right? Because they never actually have to be put in a situation where they have to think about other people, right? So, I mean, I agree, but I would say this, in terms of like the wording and stuff, I think it's just semantics. You know what I mean? Like whether it's a luxury or whether it's a privilege or whether it's that, I think the conversations now are happening too frequently for people to avoid. Exactly.
That's not what I'm trying to make.
Especially, maybe not older people, or maybe not even people who are millennials, but especially people in my generation.
You can't have the internet and not understand.
No, but you have to have... I agree with the outcome of what you two are saying. My problem with the empathy conversation and even the privilege and luxury conversation, I think it is more than semantics. There are people that are able to navigate this world and never see black people.
That's true.
And they have the internet and they're not searching or seeing those headlines. And they watch a news station.
I don't know if you can ever miss those nowadays.
You say that because you're looking at it through the eyes of someone who is of a community that's socially in pain. I'm telling you, I've had conversations with folks, and I know when the light bulb came on for them. For many white people, George Floyd was when the light bulb came on.
And I was just about to use George Floyd as an example.
But you can't, there's plenty of black people that would then argue before George Floyd, there was plenty of people that were being beat, killed, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Rodney King.
But a knee on the neck for 8 minutes does not require a lifetime of experience and empathy. Would you want a knee on the neck by anybody?
No, I agree.
It's that simple.
I agree with that, but there's some people that still don't know that story.
That's a damn shame.
I agree with you, and that's why I call it a
But
luxury.
it's because they have the luxury.
They have the luxury
of
of navigating life and never hearing about George Floyd.
I don't have many luxuries because of my upbringing, so I can't. I don't know how to empathize with luxury.
Exactly,
Right,
but
and that's
nor
fair.
should you. Your community is socially in pain, which is why I don't blame you if you don't go socially be curious about other ethnicities.
That's for Kelsey. I love her.
No, but you're proving my point.
Yeah.
Because our community is socially in pain, I'm not blaming you for not being socially curious because...
But how can you not see the pain from afar, man? It just bothers me. Like, there's a level of negligence, I believe.
I
There's
agree
a
with
level
that
of
too.
negligence. Unless you are in the most remote area of this country, and if you're in the most remote area of this country, you probably don't have running water, which I can probably understand that. But if you are the average citizen, forget about poverty line, forget about location, forget about demographic, you should be able to see situations where people are disproportionately affected by it and be able to say, damn, I wouldn't want it to happen to me or my family. If you can't do that, there's a chemical imbalance, or either there's a chemical imbalance or you're willfully being negligent towards having some type of empathy towards other people. If you can't feel that, that's a problem.
Chris, I agree with you that there are people that are willfully negligent.
Because the same thing would happen to other people, they would
you.
want the same empathy.
I don't disagree with you.
The same people who say they had the luxury or whatever it is that they don't get to experience it. If it happens to them, they're going to want the same thing that we're talking about now.
I don't.
So how could you not have it?
I don't disagree with you.
It's
all
like breathing
I
almost.
am telling you is there are people in this country that are good people that have not heard about George Floyd, and that does not make them less empathetic. Because they have the luxury of navigating
using
life.
Yahoo and not Google? Like, I don't understand. Like,
Ask Jeeves.
Chris, you're viewing life through the lens of the oppressed and not the oppressor.
Here's the thing, bro.
I'm not asking you to. I'm just telling
And
you.
neither can they.
And neither can they. That's exactly what I'm saying.
No.
The fact that you can't see it
Right,
any other way.
I can because I've made the choice.
She's socially curious.
To step out. And not even step out. It started when I was like 4. To be curious about other people and to care about other people. Love is an action. All of that. There's some people that claim to be Christian that are not. there are lots
That's
of
another thing.
there's
A lot of people that we're talking about lean on that same Bible that that you're just speaking of right now,
and they're
yet they go
sinning,
against it.
and they're sinning because of what they're wearing based on whatever it says in the Old Testament. You can't be wearing all those different clothes together. How dare you not wear all cotton?
The reason I say, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The reason I say that, and I want to get your take on this, because you and I are aligned right now.
Hypocrisy is insane. If you pick up that same book and call yourself a Christian and you act the way you act, you are a true hypocrite and you need to be called out on it.
But they're gonna find out once they get to whatever you believe in.
My only thing is
That's negligence.
one of the most, probably the most talked about interracial couple right now is Prince Harry and Princess Meghan Markle. Is that a fair statement? Would y'all agree with that? Is that a fair statement? That they're one of the most, I ain't saying they're the most, but
And they're
one
internationally talked about.
and they're
which
internationally
makes them,
talked about.
Yeah.
Do I believe Prince Harry is not an empathetic person? No, I don't. I don't believe that he lacks empathy.
He wouldn't have married.
Let me finish. I don't think that he lacks empathy as a human being. I've never met the guy, but I don't believe that. At the same time, he went on camera and told people, I did not realize how racist my country was. I didn't realize how racist my family is. This is a gentleman who is empathetic, but he had the luxury of navigating life for 30 plus years without having proximity to the very pain his wife and hold on. And other people have experienced.
The royal family is an exception to what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Joe the plumber.
But Chris, there's there's 70% of this country.
That's a sick thing to say too, bro.
Look like the Prince and Joe the
That's a
plumber.
wild thing, right? But that's the royal family. He never had to lift a fucking fork if you, lift a fork if you didn't want to, right? My whole thing is, I'm talking about Joe the plumber.
Joe the plumber is not Googling George Floyd.
Yeah,
or House on Market. He's not reading the blogs you're reading.
You don't have to Google it. My whole thing is,
then where is he going to see it?
It's every
on what channel?
But wait.
What channel?
What about all of there's different large newscasts, right?
You never change the channel?
Yes, there's
you
people.
Only watch Fox?
There's some people who never change the channel. That's what I'm trying to get you to see.
Some people only watch Fox News, bro.
There's literally people out there that believe fully in Fox News and whatever they tell them. Everything else is a lie. And they have the luxury of watching.
No. That's willful.
Right,
that is willful.
That's willful.
Right.
I'm not going to remove. You will not convince me before this podcast ends that they are not.
But here's my question. I'm more so aligned with you. I'm not gonna lie.
Because you make a choice to do what you do, and they're making a choice to not do it.
They're making a choice,
and you cannot convince me otherwise.
Right.
If you're ignorant, if you're acting like that now, if you're doing it on purpose, and it needs to be called out.
How do you even? Okay. Let me ask this.
It is being called out.
I think it is very dangerous.
And I appreciate you for that.
I think it is very dangerous. And I saw this in the last political cycle, which is why I'm so adamant. I love you and you know that. But this is why I'm so adamantly opposed to what you're saying. I fully agree with you that there are negligent people who willfully choose to only receive information that confirms their train of thought. I agree with you. And those people should be called out, and you turn the heat up on them as much as you want to. Mm-hmm. I'm not pushing back on that. At the same time, I've lived life long enough and I've traveled to enough places to know that there's also people who have the same end result, meaning they only watch a certain type of news or have a certain type of friend group. And they're not negligent.
Here's the thing.
No. Hold on, let me finish, bro.
Finish.
And I've seen those people when the light bulb comes on with a man whose neck was kneeled on for 8 minutes. These people are like literally crying in pain, figuring out what else can I do. I did not realize
why didn't I see
it
before?
And so that's why I say it's dangerous. It is very dangerous to call all these people negligent. It is very dangerous to call all of them. What did they call the folks that supported them? I forgot what they called them, but there was people. There's a term that people called not intolerable, but they called them folks that were supporting that basically support that newscast.
Idiots,
whatever. It's very dangerous to call them that. And the reason I say that is dangerous is because when that moment happens for them, not the ones that's negligent. I'm not advocating for them. But for the ones that's not like that, the ones that are really enjoying a luxury,
are like trapped.
when that moment comes, I don't want them to then not do it because you've already written them off.
And
I don't
help
want
them
when their
cross the
Kelsey
chasm.
moment comes that they choose not to because you said, "Oh, you was intentional." No, they wasn't.
I have a point for you.
Okay.
The reason why one of the reasons why we have this issue is because we only see
Deplorables, by the way,
Deplorable
is the term.
is the word. Yeah, I was thinking about
Don't call people deplorable. Not all of them are deplorable.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are, but not all of them.
The one issue that we have here is, in a general sense, there's an American problem, right? There's an American issue.
I don't think it's just in America, but I agree with you.
Let me finish my point. There's an American issue that we have here, and the reason being is you have people who only see America from whatever side they see it from, right? But then there's a worldview. I've lived overseas before, and I've seen people who look like Kelsey and G who says, I would never go to America. I'm terrified to go to America because what they see on the news. They see America as a dangerous place for anybody. We see America as a dangerous place for people of color, right? We see it as that, but they see it for everybody. And they look just like white people. You go to Europe, you go to the UK, the same racist. The country, Prince Harry didn't think that racism that rampant in this country. There are white people who say, hey, I wouldn't dare go to New York City or wherever they like to travel to from overseas because they can't, the thought of gun violence to them is insane. The thought of being killed by police to them is something they can't fathom. So it's not, they're able to empathize with everyone in our country without having any experience in it and only seeing it on TV. So my whole point is, if you can do that from across the pond, you should do it while you're here.
But I think the
Yeah, but
only
do
thing-
they...
Go ahead. I think you're about to say what I'm about to say. Go.
Do they see it from the perspective of black people or just from the perspective?
They see it as an American problem.
It's just
But
like
they say
it's
a
a power of
country,
America.
a country.
But they have the luxury of having proximity to our problem because it's telecasted and what they're. Hold on, let me.
So if they can see our
Hold on, let
news,
me
how
finish.
can you tell me Jordan Plummer hasn't seen George Floyd on TV?
Hold on, let me finish.
How?
Let me finish. But they're watching a news station that shows that. That in itself is negating what I'm talking about, which is the luxury. I have cousins that live in certain they live in the top 20 metropolitan statistical areas, heavily populated by people of color, not just black people, but people of color. And they don't understand, how are you cool with white people? And I'm like, how are you not cool with white people? Have you not hung out with white
Luxury
people?
is a choice, bro.
I don't think it's, no.
It is a choice.
Privilege is a choice.
No, luxury is a choice. You can choose to buy a Ferrari. You can choose to buy a Honda Accord. You can choose to be whatever level of socioeconomic status you want to be and have your kids in situations where they don't get involved with anyone else that don't look like them. That's a choice. And that choice has impacts down the line.
Can you choose to buy a Ferrari if you don't know it exists, though?
That's what I'm saying. If you don't know, there's
what I
plenty
mean?
of people that when they listen to jazz music or
I'm
whatever.
talking about luxury, though.
But that is a luxury, bro.
But you have to be afforded a certain level of access to even know what a Ferrari. I mean, everybody knows a Ferrari.
Not everybody.
If I walk in the street right now, walk street right here in Pittsburgh, and ask you, hey, you ever heard of a Ferrari?
Can I
say yes.
Can
That's not the
I?
point.
I was gonna say.
Can I use?
What I'm making is luxury is a choice.
The
You
thing-
can
the
choose
thing-
not,
though.
You can choose to be the luxurious lifestyle. You can choose not.
Can I
was
say
gonna
something,
say,
bro?
yeah, go ahead.
When we talked to DeVario, you praised DeVario for introducing you to a word called tertiary, right?
Yes.
Tertiary is in the dictionary. Do I think you're not an empathetic person or a socially curious person because you chose not to read every page of the dictionary and find tertiary? No. No, you were able to navigate your life for 30 plus years without hearing the word tertiary. That doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't make you a person who's not educationally curious. That doesn't make you a lack of a learner. You have
If tertiary had their neck laid on for 8 minutes, I would have heard about it.
That's not. You would because of the viewpoint.
what I'm saying.
You would because of you're looking at it through the lens of the community in pain. And what I'm telling you is a community that is not in pain. They've never heard tertiary before.
I got you.
And I think it is very dangerous. It is very dangerous to create an environment that when they finally hear the word tertiary, now they're not curious enough to become the Kelseys because you completely wrote them off as deplorable, as ignorant, as willfully choosing not to be empathetic.
Well, but also,
The negligent
I think,
ones do, not all of them.
I think
bro.
there's like a generational thing here too, right? You
Agree
brought
with
it
that
up.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
I was
like,
just gonna say
my
that.
generation's split. I'm Gen Z, whatever. But
No.
I love Gen Z. They're out here.
Yeah,
But-
my point in there is that this is why I agree with you, right? Because I can see this from a young person's perspective. Access to information is way too great nowadays. You know what I mean? Like
For a generation that was completely
those
built on having
encyclopedias
access,
that
you
are-
should say that.
yeah, that's what I was saying.
But my
Those
grandparents
encyclopedias
still have
that are
access to
up
what
on
you
that-
have and probably have more capital
That's
than
all
you
they
have,
had.
and they
But-
never used the internet.
Exactly. That's why I'm in the middle.
But
I'm
that's
in the
not
middle.
negligent.
I'm in the middle. I mean, like I can
I would
see from
expect a
both
Gen Z to be in the middle.
a Gen Z.
Well, but
Gen Z's gonna
see-
change the world.
The Gen
See,
Z.
so what I was gonna say is
Because
so,
of the generations that came before them.
right. So
Because of the internet.
right, the
why
internet.
we're-
Created by generations before them.
Gen Z will change the world because of the internet. It doesn't matter who made it. They're going to be the ones that use it to change this world.
Because
Right.
of the
Because of
generations
access, and they
before
can
them.
see people with their knees on their neck for 8 minutes. It doesn't matter if you search Scooby-Doo or Pinatas. I'm pretty sure somewhere along the line, your internet journey, which we all have complete access to in a general sense, you've seen the name George Floyd somewhere.
if they did a survey and polled everybody in the United States on whether they have seen that event or not, 100% of my generation will say yes. And as each progressive,
get lower
it would
and
get
lower.
lower and lower.
And
So
that's
I
all I'm
understand what he's
Significantly,
saying.
though, but not significantly.
Yes, it
though.
was.
No,
If he
I-
said
It probably
100,
would.
if he said 100,
I guarantee you.
Fox News, George Floyd, and see what
No,
comes
no,
up.
but look. So
you're
okay,
assuming
here
they
it
watch George Floyd. Some of them watch. You ever heard
Newsmax,
of?
yeah,
You ever heard of redmeat.com?
No, I don't want to
No,
hear it.
nobody.
I'm just saying, redmeat.com is a very ultra-conservative news outlet. That doesn't make you guys...
No, and here's the
Hold on,
thing,
hold on.
too.
You guys aren't negligent because you guys have access to the internet and never heard of redmeat.com. No, it just means that there's some people out there that read there. There's some people that only read Breitbart.
I just hope
And the way-
Reddit.com had an article
Look,
about
look,
George Floyd.
look,
I don't
here's the
care about
thing,
the
here's the-
platform. It's the subject matter.
some
Here's
of
the
them
thing,
don't, though,
and the
bro.
subject
That's-
matter is different on those sites too,
Exactly.
right? So they paint it in a way where it's like, it's easy for those people to.
That's
like,
all I'm saying. Bro, we've seen...
It's weird. It's weird because this is a crazy conversation because I feel we've been talking about empathy. Like I feel
not that
empathetic
hard, bro.
that they choose
Once
It's
you
not
know
to be
it's
that
not
hard.
negligent.
It's not
It's
that
that
hard
hard.
for you, but it's not that hard for you. It's not
once
hard
you
for
choose,
anybody
bro,
in this room.
We're in a sad world. If empathy is that hard to accomplish, we're in a sad, sad world. And I see why it's in the state that it's in now, and I have less hope for the future than I had
But
before
see-
this podcast
No, but
episode.
So, like-
Chris, I agree with you that empathy is not hard. Being exposed to an event where you have to use empathy is.
It's out of your
It's
control.
not
I wouldn't
empathy.
even call it hard.
Empathy is not hard.
Would anybody in this room or anybody who visits redmeat.com as a subscriber want to be a cow on the way to the meatpacking plant?
No.
You gonna eat that burger though, right? But you'll still eat the burger, but you wouldn't stay in line. You wouldn't stay in line for that.
My concern
I
is-
wouldn't want to be shot in the head or whatever they do to cows to get the meat from. I wouldn't want to do that, right?
Right.
That's easy to understand.
Right.
My
Yeah, it is.
my
I don't want to go to
concern,
slaughterhouse.
So
It is.
my
It is.
concern is again to use an extreme example like being shot in the head on the way to a meatpacking plant. Is
As a cow.
and the irony of redmeat.com and you still say
Whoa, I didn't even
is-
pick that up. That's
is
crazy.
phenomenal. But again, I think empathy, to your point, are there people who are negligent in being empathetic and they are aware of situations that they should demonstrate empathy to? Yes, I agree with you.
And they're the
for
ones
those-
who create that luxury that you speak of.
No, I think they contribute to it. I also think that there. Yes, I also think that there are some people that they have been able to navigate life in a way that has not afforded them the same exposure, and therefore they haven't had to.
But is that more so by
So-
choice or more so by circumstance?
So
Yeah,
wait,
some of
I
it-
have a. Can I go back to the generational thing?
Sure.
So when I went to college, I studied communication studies, and that's not like how do you produce a podcast or like creating commercials or whatever. It's literally the study of how people communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And so I basically took every class I could. So I like to say that I majored and I minored in it, but I just majored in it. And one of my favorite communication theories came from this guy named Marshall McLuhan. I think he was Canadian, and he might have been a sociologist. But before the internet even existed, he came up with this theory that lightning would strike the earth and it would create a global village. So everyone would know what someone was doing on the other side of the world and be able to help them, right? That happened. That's the internet. So, but he came up with that idea long before the internet was even a thing, right? Or before he knew it was a thing. It could have happened around the same time. I can't think of the dates. But all of that to say, we all grew up watching when there was a tsunami.
Yes.
Or when there was a hurricane that devastated a part of our country. And, you know, we were watching it just like, man, that's awful.
Yeah.
But there are so many people still alive today that only had those encyclopedias up on your bookshelf that are whitewashed and they don't talk about the losers. True. You know what I'm saying? And when they do talk about the losers, they talk about them in a negative way, like they did something wrong.
Or an extreme positive way.
Right.
Because I went to Atlanta. I'm gonna tell you where I shifted. I was like you in your thought process until I moved to Atlanta. Atlanta has a building called the Atlanta History Museum or Atlanta History Center. It's off West Paces. Correct me, T, whatever the name is. We'll correct the name in the show notes. But anyway, they talked about the writing of history. And Daughters of the Confederacy.
The Daughters of the Confederacy
have
were
influenced
in
the very
of it.
Textbooks you're reading. And so there's people that have been afforded they have went from one silo to the next, and they don't even know that there were another group of people that were pulling the strings to ensure you never get an opportunity to hear about George Floyd.
Right.
And for those people, it is very difficult for me to then cast them in the same.
Somebody made a choice to hide the history. Allow these people to
because they were racist.
Negligent.
Yes. But
because they were racist and they weren't negligent. They were very intentional about it.
Yes.
They did that with every intention of making sure that certain stories didn't get told the correct way. All of the civil rights stuff that we read, black and white, not black and white. It was in color. Mm-hmm. Why did they put it in black and white? To make it look like it was so far long, like so long ago that like we don't have to worry. Right. Like there's still people that are out here, grown people that experience that. There's still people alive that were born on sharecropper farms. Yeah. That were technically slaves as children.
Yeah. Like, and I'm pretty sure they've seen it on TV.
Those people have.
But they might not have seen.
Those people have. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, there's such a the boomers and up. There's plenty of them that have experienced something that helps them to be empathetic in certain situations, right? But there's other people that have experienced things that are like, I don't have empathy for that person because they're lesser than me.
But how they have
and that's the thing, because it's a generational thing.
Lesser than you hit the nail on the head, because when that guy in Atlanta killed all those people in those massage parlors, the chief of police said he had a bad day.
He had a bad day.
But
he had a bad day.
Bro, and he works in policing. So this, I'm not saying he's one of the negligent ones or not, because I don't know.
But see, he can empathize with a white man having a bad day that killed 9 people, because that's what he does on a bad day as a police officer.
And his brother is white, and his kids have a white uncle, and his dad was a white man. This is what I'm saying. Like their exposure, some of them, their exposure.
It's so siloed.
And what the beauty of your passion of what I love about it, Chris, number one, we agree mostly.
Yeah, we agree.
The second part though is your viewpoint is exactly what a person that was born in 88?
Yeah.
You are acting like a person who was born in 88. A person in 88 should say, I don't understand why you haven't read this article.
Right.
Mm-hmm. No offense. Yeah, it should be. You were born in 88.
Because you grew up before the internet.
Same thing with
experienced it, and so you know both ways.
But the dude who killed the people in the massage parlor isn't 90 years old.
He isn't, but he might have been born in Stone Mountain, and his daddy might have been KKK, and his daddy was intentional in making sure he always viewed black people differently and Asian people differently, and those people exist.
That's the sad world.
There's a special,
because they have their choice, right? Was not to engage, was to only keep the same people around them.
And they didn't know any wiser.
That's the thing about America is our freedom of choice. So they have that choice, right? And you have every right to be upset that there's people out there that are like that, because they're hurting you.
Yeah, indirectly.
Right?
They're hurting all of us.
Well, I don't even think it's indirect.
I don't even think it's indirect.
It's like
You're hurting all of us.
There's real trauma that comes from seeing people that look like you getting killed on film, and no one gets, like, there's no justice done there. Right. So there's real trauma. That's still firsthand. Like, you may or may not have been there. It may or may not have happened to someone in your family.
We shed tears.
But over that's real. That's real. But there's a lot of people out here that choose to not care. Choose to still think lesser of people because of the history books. So like in the South, what do they call the Civil War in the South? The law of Northern aggression, or the War of Northern aggression. Hello, whitewash. There, in every other place, they call it the Civil War. It's talked about differently in different parts of the country, and you can see it when you look at a map of who they voted for and how they voted and the certain laws that they have.
And that's all I'm saying is the ones who chose to make that decision and continue to choose to make that decision despite being exposed.
You're a weak individual, bro.
I agree.
You weak as hell.
At the same time,
We're in agreement.
They're being manipulated though by something.
I agree with you. But
Also true.
But what I'm saying is,
That's a good point too that he just made.
bro.
what?
Is that in this day and age, I mean, it shouldn't be that easy to be manipulated. You know what I mean?
But it is.
No. I don't agree there. It's too much information.
When were you born?
Information
When were you born?
In the
No.
2000s.
I think
When were you born?
2001.
A person born in 2001 should say that.
Now, I agree. We agree here. I think
Right.
there's too much information, and because there's so much information, you can go into a rabbit hole of anything.
I think that's a positive thing though.
No, it's not, because
Yeah.
then you further reinforce your one viewpoint. You can say the sky is orange. I guarantee if you go to Google page 4, you're going to find a whole page of things that the sky is orange.
Okay, that I agree with you. It's I should say something like that, but I will say that for my generation, it should be more difficult. Because you know what?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. My dad gets called. I know you probably get calls.
Oh man,
like,
the credit card or like my whatever.
And he comes to me and he's like, "Son, they're trying to get. They need my social security. Somebody's trying to hack me."
No, they don't.
Right. He comes to me saying that. Right.
I'm fishing.
And he has no clue each time they're trying to take advantage of him.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm saying. His dad is educated. His dad is a doctor. So this is a perfect example. His dad is not negligent to not Googling that there's people who call you and scam you to get your credit card.
Because he's worried about his family.
Exactly. But he was raised in a
If Ali, being Generation Z with all his access, doesn't educate his father on what phishing is, then Ali is negligent.
But he's got to have that experience to do that.
And this is
Oh,
why
and I told
Generation
him.
Z would
Trust
change
me,
the
I
world.
told him.
I said,
Dad, don't worry.
Y'all are the ones that are going to change the world. The shift in institutions as a whole, it's not going to happen with us. It's going to happen with you guys.
I think it's all. First of all, I think it's already happening.
It's happening, but
It's already happening.
I think it started with.
It started, but to see it, you'll be alive, and you'll see when these changes are in full swing. That's what I mean.
I believe each generation contributes to the next, whether positively or negatively.
100%.
And I also believe that there were enough socially curious people that were black, white, brown, blue, green, that millennials, they curated a generation in millennials where we were able to start enough significant change at scale. King's generation was changed. Sojourner Truth's generation was changed. Harriet Tubman was changed, but not at the scale that we saw with millennials. And we nowhere near done.
And a lot of that has to do with...
And I think Gen Z will benefit because what they're gonna do is then make such change common practice.
Right.
What your generation will be able to do in this country is build upon so much. You talked about laying foundation. They're gonna be able to build upon so many sacrifices made before them that the norm changes.
Right.
Like, I actually think there will be a generation that what you just said, that if you don't empathize, you just negligent. There will be a generation. This ain't it though.
This ain't it though. I respect it.
And that's all I was trying to say. This ain't it. And to lump all of those people together is dangerous because some of them the light bulb did turn on. Lucky for Kelsey went to Clover Hill. I ran track and played football against Clover Hill. The fact that your friend group is the way that you said it is phenomenal, because Clover Hill actually doesn't create an environment for that to be true.
Well, but
there is a lot of mixed groups there, but
yeah.
Clover Hill, Midlothian, Manchester, despite them having a number of great numbers in minorities, you shouldn't be the minority in your group simply because you went to Clover Hill.
Mm.
Now, if you went to TJ and you were white, then yeah, that probably is the case.
And it's funny because I have all of my yearbooks except for like maybe my 3rd grade one, but I can use my brother's. But when I was like looking at my yearbooks, I was kind of flipping through recently, like that's like within the last year. But I was flipping through and just thinking about my friend group and just being like, how? Like white, like how we're all, but like I didn't conform to like the cliquey groups in high school either. They were around. I was friendly with all of them. Now I would call them acquaintances or convenient relationships that I had because I passed them in the hallway. But like, I know that I've gotten in arguments with plenty of them on Facebook that have blocked me. And I'm like, 10-year reunion's gonna be fun now. See you there. Like, I was not friends with you then. You might have thought I was because I'm a nice person, but there's still people that I am technically in close proximity to that have all of the things that I have, that grew up the same way that I grew up, and are still out here saying, you can't say that to me because I had a black friend. Shut up, because I'm still friends with that black friend that you're talking about, and they saw that and they're not talking to you. They haven't talked to you because they saw who you really were. That light bulb for them went off, and they were like, why am I even hanging around this person? Like, they're not doing anything to benefit me, to help me, to do anything, And there's people out there that think that they can just act any type of way because of their proximity to black people or to people of color more broadly, and they can't. Like,
I think that it's beautiful that you're being active about this sort of cultural mixing and stuff, because I don't see another way that things can get better if there's no discussion and if there's no mixing and if there's no, like, I remember earlier you were talking about how even now outside of your work life, you pretty much just like, it's just like minorities, right?
Yeah.
And you only have such few like white friends and stuff like that. And I was the same way, bro. But you know what I realized is that, first of all, I can't wait for, I need to be more active in trying to understand these people, right? And I can't wait for them to come to me, right? That's the main thing, is that like, if I sit around and wait for a white person to figure out, I need to learn more about black culture or Middle Eastern culture, let me go talk to Ali. If I sit around and wait for that, I don't think it'll ever happen. Not that it'll never happen, but it's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a while. So, and from my perspective, it's just better for me to, like he said, create the proximity for myself.
Well, and the other thing that you're saying here too is that it's important to actually physically be around and like to learn whatever the opposite is, because if you don't and you just try to learn it from the internet, that's when appropriation starts. And that's like what I have a big deal, like, problem with. I see certain people out and I know it's bad for me to judge them, but I'm like, why are you that? Do you have any black friends? Because none of them would have let you out of the house like that.
I agree, and that's what I liked about what I wanted to correct earlier, or at least speak on, not correct. But you were like, I never saw color. I think appropriation also sets in when people say, I never seen color. No, I want you to see my color, and then I want you to empathize with it.
Exactly, and I
want you to see my struggle and then empathize with it.
I'm glad you brought that back up, because that was definitely one of those things that, like, as a child, that's what I thought. And then when I got older, I was like, no, I definitely see color, and that's why I am the way that I am.
Exactly.
And I want my world to be colorful, and I want the people in my life to have different experiences so that we can come together and talk about it
Yeah.
and be in communion, like, you know, what you were saying. And like, so that definitely was, I'm glad that you did bring that back up, because I don't want people to be like, she does.
Yeah,
like,
they would have got us in the comments.
Yeah, they would have
Kelsey.
got me. But that's like what I said, you know, when I'm like, you know, 7 or whatever. Like, I don't see, like, I didn't know that Lauren was black, like, until you mentioned it. I guess she is. But, you know, as I got older, I realized, like, that's not even true. I do see color. I'm not colorblind.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
And I think the beauty of this conversation is we need all of these types of perspectives in order for us to progress. We need the Generation Zers who are going to be going to benefit from all the lifelong history of change for this country. You guys are going to be able to benefit from it. You guys are going to mold the next generation even greater. Yeah. We need the Donalds of the world who can see the world in different perspectives and be able to identify with it. We need the Kelseys of the world who exercise the power of choice. And we also need people
who are harsh on the negligent.
Who are harsh on the negligent one, but also want to focus on uplifting people. So I don't have anything against. I want to make sure it's clear. I don't have anything against like anybody, like any people.
I know,
at all.
we know you.
However, my people need help.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm willing to take the chances and the sacrifice and the risk to help my people before I go. Before you
lend a hand to somebody else, right? And that's totally fair.
And to your point, for friendship for me is important. It's not just proximity. It's about love. It's about support. It's about effort. And Kelsey, you exercise that greatly, and I see it, and I appreciate it wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
And I to have you as a friend and as someone that we can you're we can't curse, but you're the sugar honey iced tea, right?
Oh.
I like that. There you go.
Yeah, iced tea.
But
pretty rinky.
Look,
I'm okay with having you on one side and trying to uplift my community on the other side.
Yeah.
Here's the thing
But
I would say though, Chris, is that, and I don't know if you're gonna say this, but I think a lot of times we're kind of in the same direction.
Sure.
Is that our community is only gonna benefit from you challenging yourself to understand the rest of everybody else, and for them to understand too, right? So like Black people that you have direct impact over, or that you will in the future, will have a positive experience, and potentially you'll be able to impact more if your worldview is better. And the only way that happens is if you talk to more people.
Yeah, and
I've been around the world, bro.
I know you have, and I know you have.
Plenty of people, and I know still stand firm in what I believe in now because I've talked to so many people and how they think about us as a country, as a nation, not by individual people. So I agree. I feel exactly what you're saying.
I agree.
And my worldview is right back to where I am right now.
Yeah,
this is what
I know.
So I'll say two things. The first thing is, you're not wrong for not being. A community in pain is not going to be a community that is curious. So you're not wrong for that. At the same time, you're benefiting from having Kelsey on your other side.
I am.
Who chose to get beyond such luxury that she just told you people that went to the same school in the same neighborhood had. She got by. She said, look, I'm going to still seek out and be curious. So I think that's phenomenal that you get to benefit from that. I think the second thing though is, so I'm gonna let you know now, you gotta have a part 2. Because you done riled people up in a good way. You done riled, you done riled.
Oh, we can have the Katie blanket.
We don't even pass out part 2s. Like that ain't even like there are people that's gonna have part 2s, but we don't really pass them out.
You don't really
You're
announce
gonna have a part 2. But the other thing is, Chris said he traveled around the world and saw the people who then commented on this, so why he doubles down on that. I think half the reason they can comment on that is in those countries, they've never had to confront integration the same way we have.
That's true.
So it's easy for them to then judge what you the Roosters have not come home to what is it, Roos?
To roost.
Right?
Yeah.
They have not the chickens haven't clucked there before.
Oh no,
I studied abroad in Ireland. It's monoculture. It's 96% white, 98% Catholic.
Yep.
So it's easy for them to then judge America. And I had an amazing time in Ireland. I love all of the Irish people that I'm still friends with even now, even executives like Bob Savage. Like, I love these people. At the same time, they've never had to actually confront having tons of Chris move into their homes.
But they can see it from across the pond. They can empathize. That's the only point I have to make.
They're empathizing because it's not in their home.
I was gonna say, I agree.
What
with
happens
that as well.
when Bob loses his job to Tierra Russell? Is he still gonna judge, America the same way? Is he still gonna choose? Is he still gonna call it negligence?
Knee on your neck is a knee on your neck. That's all I got.
We gotta have a part.
No, we agree.
We have a part.
We're agreeing that.
Yeah.
Knee on the neck is.
But that's what I'm saying. Even the knee on the neck
is a nasty
They
thing.
have a 2% chance of the knee being on the neck of a black man in their country. Of course, they're gonna say George Floyd's situation is wrong. There's only 2% chance happening in your country. But what happened when that 2 turned to a 50%? You still cool with it?
Yeah.
The interesting part about there's a study I encourage everybody to go look up. It's called Unpacking the 2010 Census. It's actually based on our community here in Central Virginia, Richmond, Petersburg, Tri-City area. But it talked about interstates and how interstates were formed. And I shared this with G when we were traveling here. And 95 wasn't supposed to even come through Richmond. Whites and blacks were united in Interstate 95 not coming through Richmond.
Where was it supposed to go through?
They were actually trying to figure out how to get it through Richmond, but it wasn't. The developers wanted it to go through Richmond. Local residents did not. Do you want to know how they shifted on that? The developers went back to the whites and said, okay, we'll run it through a black neighborhood.
And then they say, yeah.
You need to have commerce in your city. If you don't have commerce in your city, you will not thrive. They used a fear tactic to tell them you need to have trade. Have I benefited from 95 being in Richmond? Absolutely. Has Virginia benefited from the commerce that happened through 95?
Yeah, but has black communities
Is it rooted
suffered?
in racism? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it demolished neighborhoods like Navy Hill and Jackson Ward.
Yep.
And so all I am saying is this. Those same people that said 95 was bad were finally found a way to be convinced that it was good. And I think countries that you're talking about will all ultimately, when Black people are going to one day start traveling more. Our generation travels more than many other generations before, and we're going to start moving to other areas. T is indicative of that, right? Moving from Atlanta to now Richmond. And there's going to be other people that move abroad. When those things happen, what will they choose? Is 95 still not good? Or is 95 good through your neighborhood? And that's why I think we got to have a part 2. But more importantly, I got to say this, Kelsey, continue doing what you're doing. At least my personal friends, the people I call chosen family, and T and Chris, they have benefited from you. So
I've benefited from them more than they know, but yeah.
But I say this, like for him to even say that having you on one side, there's a lot of people that don't have you on one side. And so for that, I commend you. I commend all the Kelseys of the world. And for the gentlemen that be like, oh, well, I'm not a Kelsey, we commend the Marks too.
Yes,
Okay? We
the
commend
Marks.
too.
And Joe DePalma got to get his act right.
And Joe got to get his, he got to get his Joe right.
Joe Plumber.
He changed the channel.
If you like this episode, share it with a friend. Use your connection to amplify these types of voices. And be sure to check out our new podcast titled Bigger Than You Think. We're committed to creating proximity between all communities and cultures.